Hey everyone, hope you've been doing well. Sorry I didn't do a video on chapter 1116. In case you missed the post about it, I was out of town. And on top of that, the chapter was well drawn, but didn't have the kind of jaw-dropping action panels I prefer to talk about. But you know which chapter was full of action? Chapter 1117. So let's get right into it. And stick around to the end of the video to learn about another channel I'm starting. After a few pages of setup, the action gets started with Zoro. He and Jinbei get narrow close-ups to enhance the cliffhanger. Tight shots withhold information about where they are and what they're doing, forcing us to wonder what's happening outside the shot as we turn the page. Every panel on this page is deliberate. The first one answers the question, showing us that Zoro and Jinbei are chasing Venus Juro. The second one only shows Venus Juro and Sunny, to set up that he's closing in to attack and put Zoro and Jinbei out of our minds for a moment, increasing the sense of danger. The big panel shows that he's about to attack, and the final two show the characters' feelings. I've spoken many times about how showing emotions matters, so I'll spare you that this time. But the final panel also uses a close-up to, again, increase tension on the page turn by not showing what's outside the shot. Back to the big panel, there's a lot of tension to be resolved. Tension is coming up a lot. Venus Juro's twisted arms and torso make it easy to feel how his blade will swing outward. He hangs in the air against an empty backdrop, in the calm before the storm, ready to come crashing down. The eye travels diagonally down Venus Juro before being pulled left by the dark contrast of Sunny, in exactly the direction Venus Juro is going to swing in, making us anticipate it even harder. One side is shaded black and white, and the other black and gray. Oda uses this trick several times in the chapter, to divide an image into two sides in conflict, making them easily distinguishable. Yet Lilith is hard to notice in there, compared to how large Venus Juro is, matching how insignificant she is in the face of this threat. Luckily, the second and fourth strongest Straw Hats have a plan. Jinbei's throw uses right-to-left motion, crossed horizontal space, and a circular composition to feel powerful. But the next panels are where it gets cool. Since Zoro is flying left, thin horizontal panels act like speed lines, emphasizing his velocity. At the same time, their short height means the eye, moving downward, crosses them quickly. Combining those things together, these panels make Zoro feel fast and make it feel like this happens in an instant, two related but distinct feelings. Venus Juro's face leads the eye down to the big panel, aligning with the X-shaped composition. X's are great for conflict, and here the two lines literally represent the two fighters. One is Venus Juro's blade, and the other is Zoro's body and the direction he flew in from. There's also a radial composition behind it, matching the sharpness of the swords. I like how it mixes black and white lines to represent both the impact and the haki. The camera angle is unorthodox. Normally, a shot from behind would block out important elements, but Venus Juro is big enough that we can still see his face, arm, and blade. This lets us use an angle that makes it feel like Zoro is defending us. What it does still hide is the clash itself, and that's because it's saved for the next page, as Oda wants to do a reveal that they're both using Kitetsu blades. Clever paneling is like juggling. Resolve one thing while setting up the next. We see the blades, but at the same time, we're getting more tension. 3 tight shots in a row, their close-ups crammed against each other, and their attacks overlapping in intersecting lines. Then we resolve that with a wide shot, distance between them, and the radial lines being empty at the center, in contrast to how the lines intersected before. These lines are literally telling us, through visual language, that their blades are no longer hitting each other. Which sure is obvious, but why not integrate it deeper into the visuals of the story? And we're still setting up the next thing, because we give Zoro some horizontal space to the right, setting up how he's going to fly further toward Jinbei, which gives the action sequence a nice sense of completion. Zoro got thrown by Jinbei, and Zoro gets caught by Jinbei. When you think about it, Zoro is kinda being carried. Zoro's action panel was big, but there's always bigger, and for that, we have to look to the giants. An X-shaped composition draws attention toward the center, but when a panel is full of life and energy, we can use a zigzag composition to take the eye on a journey across everything important. From the speech bubbles across one giant's arms, and down the ship with all the other giants before finally seeing all of the destruction below. That same shading trick comes back to distinguish the giants' visual space from the Marines, and they're clearly winning. The zigzag gives the panel multiple layers, with giants stacked atop giants. Combine that with the chaos of all the directions they point in, and it feels like they aren't just pushing forward, but pouring out of the ship, which is an insane visual when they're already so huge. They're comparable in size to the battleships. I've been thinking of doing a video on how One Piece makes giants feel so big, so let me know if you're interested in that. There's a lot of cool paneling moments that I don't have time to put in this video, so a reminder that if you want access to my write-up of everything I don't talk about here, do the Patreon or the channel memberships. Or just do them if you like my videos and you have the spare cash and want to support me. Moving toward the end of the chapter, we get more of that distinct shading when the Gorosei close in on the ancient robot. The black ink literally feels darker on the robot than it does on the Gorosei, because it's contrasting white highlights instead of gray, which makes the panel just feel so striking. The part of this panel that compels me is the use of directions for storytelling. The Gorosei are staring down at the robot, but it's walking perpendicular to them, unaware of the threat, a mindless machine that can't conceive of the danger it faces. Yet we can't help but empathize with it, when it's drawn with a human pose, its limbs flailing in imbalance after Warcury rams it. Again, the same shading trick, this time with the darkness of the robot pulling the eye left. I like the huge round shapes. This was a collision between two massive, colossal objects, dwarfing the scenery. The robot's arm draws the eye down into the next panel, where again, the blank background gives that hanging in the air feeling before everything comes crashing down. But my favorite part of the page is the speech bubble placement. It's on the far right, the first thing we see, yet it's interrupted, visually and literally, by Warcury. All the space to the left is words left unsaid, as we see the action that did the silencing. It feels visually incomplete, just like Vegapunk's speech. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, Patreon, and I started a podcast, and it has nothing to do with One Piece. Basically, I am reading through Malazan Book of the Fallen for the first time, and discussing it with some friends. If that is of no interest to my One Piece-oriented audience, no worries. This is more just something I'd be doing for fun even if I never did this main channel. But if you do happen to like those books, or know any fans, the link is below.